A very good morning to everyone joining us today. A gentle reminder that you're welcome to start putting in your names and recording your details. And if you are in any watch parties, you're welcome to put that into our chat group and share with us the numbers that are attending in your watch parties. Okay, so it's now 10 o'clock and we would like to commence with our program. So I'm going to make a start. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more people joining us as we go along. See, the numbers are constantly rising. And yesterday we had over 150 people joining us for day one of our program. So I trust that we will pick up our numbers as well, joining us today on this special day. Okay, so a very good morning to everyone joining us online today. My name is Mrs. Fiona Balgabint, for those who are not familiar with me. And I am currently the director at Pietermaritzburg Child and Youth Care Center, but I'm also serving as the National Deputy Chair for NACCW. And this morning I have the very wonderful privilege and task of serving as your program director for day two of our third day of our 3-day online program. So on behalf of our National Executive Committee, our EXCO members, and our NACCW Directorate. I take this. Yes, can I remind everyone to please mute yourself as you join in and to please keep your videos off as well. Thank you so much. Great. I take this opportunity to warmly welcome all of you to day two of our International Child and Youth Care Work Program for 2025. And I especially acknowledge that amongst us, we have our very esteemed partners. So our partners and our stakeholders include representatives from the Department of Social Development, as you know, from our South African Council for Social Service Professions, who joined us yesterday, and from our professional board representatives from the Professional Board of Child and Youth Care. Representatives from FITSA Africa, and any other international and national guests that have joined us this morning. We take the opportunity to say welcome to you, a special welcome for joining, and we especially thank you for valuing our invite and for honoring it and being here today. We also extend our welcome to all our various guest speakers today. And these guest speakers are quite a packed program, as you can see, for today. So I'll just briefly go through and welcome all our guest speakers that are joining us today. For our first panel discussion that's going to kick off our program, we have from residential care, we have conversations that we will be having with Francisco Cornelius, with Mandy Goebel, and with Pumi Mashlangu. And then we also have a second panel discussion group, and we welcome that group of vibrant young ladies that will be joining us later in the day. And they are Ms. Asanda Fishla, Nontobeko Mlambo, Rosina Kanawanga, and Tembi Msimba. So welcome to all of you for joining us today. And a very special welcome, of course, we had, as we indicated, council representing the sector as well with us yesterday. And a special welcome to our Registrar for Council, Mr. Hitler Sekhitla, who will be joining us later in the program. So with that, we'd like to welcome everyone. A special welcome we must extend to all of you that are making our program successful today, all our child and youth care workers, our social service practitioners who are online with us today, our NACCW friends and family and well-wishers who are all joining us online through some of your watch parties. We extend that extreme warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to this wonderful morning of engagement and to your active participation and your contribution for today's program. So again, just a gentle reminder, as you can see, we have a lot more people joining in as we go along. Please, just a few reminders. Can you make sure that you keep your audios and your videos off as you join in? Can we make sure that you put in your names and, as we indicated earlier, your watch parties? If you have more joining us, please share your numbers or names of others that are joining us this morning. And we'd like to welcome all the extended people joining us through the watch parties this morning. And please share with us any plans that you have. It is a special week in the Diary of Child and Youth Care. And so if you're having any special programs or exciting events that are coming up in the next week for Child and Youth Care Week, please do share that. Share that whether it's happening in your organization, whether it's happening in your province. Please share that on the group chat so others can be inspired to also do some planning and to prepare for more things that can happen. So I'm going to continue and just do a little reflection from yesterday's day one. I am sure that all of you will join me in applauding and really a special applause to NACCW for putting together this beautiful initiative and this 3-day program, which is allowing us the opportunity to take time as child and youth care workers in the sector to stop, to stay for a few moments and do some self-reflection, reflecting on our profession at the same time as a child and youth care profession in our country. So it's giving us this beautiful opportunity on the second day during the significant International Child and Youth Care Week of 2025 to recognize, to acknowledge, and to appreciate, most importantly, both all the highs and the lows. As we heard yesterday, there are some movements that choose not to. There are some childcare workers who are not too keen to celebrate and question why should we be celebrating. But it's equally important to recognize not only the lows in the profession, but the highs as well. So we take this moment to acknowledge all the good and all the positive that have come out in the child and youth care sector. And we recognize the highs and the lows, the hills and the valleys that we steadily paved through by numerous stalwarts in the child and youth care field who fought the tough fight to forge a new dream, a new vision, and a new thinking for us to reach this point of having a new profession called child and youth care, which, as we know, is quite a unique profession. A vision that has turned into a profession that has given priority to those vulnerable children who've been hiding in corners around the world and have found a way to reach out to those and to bring those children out by bringing them into the center. And that is what we have encompassed over the years in this 50-year celebration of NACCW as well. One of the important things we used to do is come together in a circle, recognizing that circle of courage that we create as NACCW for our children in the field and bringing them to the center, always remembering that they are our pride and our focus. So again, to reiterate, this is an opportunity for us to recognize a time where NSCCW has played a vital role in helping us maneuver our way to bring forward all those vulnerable children to the center, to make them become our children who deserve that right to feel loved, to feel cared for, and to give them that opportunity to belong. So during day one of our program, we were honored to listen to Dr. Kelly Shaw and her perspective on the concept of belonging. And she reminded us that in our profession, we definitely work with broken children who are redefining themselves all the time in terms of their sense of belonging. And this sense of belonging is essential for our children's identity and their well-being. So before our young children and young people can start to dream and imagine and vision a better future for themselves, they must first feel safe, they must feel protected, and most importantly, they must have that sense of belonging. So for no other reason than this morning, thinking about the fact that we have many vulnerable children in need of our care and protection in the field, we can each stand up proud 50 years later, knowing that a profession was created to cradle our broken and hurt children and to nurture them through safe relationships that we create towards their journeys of healing. Our deputy director yesterday, Dr. Donald Ngonyama, he took us also through a brief 50 years journey, showing us and reminding us of the association and its achievements, reminding us also of the challenges that are still to come and that we still need to face, but especially reminding us of the vision and the mission of NACCW, which is not diminished as you would see, but has in fact become much more stronger, with NACCW now creating a local, a national, an international, and a global footprint to be followed by many other countries, seeing us as a leader in the field of child and youth care. We also acknowledge and the closing address that our Professor Mbedzi from South African Council for Social Services profession, as the president of that profession, he came through very loudly yesterday, and we acknowledge him in looking and revisiting our theme for global belonging, and of course for recognizing the significance of NACCW's role. So in his, in his contribution and closure, he highlighted some significant points as well in terms of NACCW's role. And in promoting, looking at NACCW in terms of promoting collaboration among stakeholders and other professionals and bringing them together. He spoke about the partnership that NACCW has forged, both with international, with national, international, and especially with global partners and bodies. And especially for NACCW in terms of maintaining and sustaining valuable relationships that have promoted good practice, not only in South Africa for child and youth care work, but also throughout the world. So as we're going to move into day 2 of today's program, I will take this opportunity to start as we did with day 1, to light our candle. As you see, I'm going to just light it and keep it on the side. Give me a moment to light our candle. Okay, but as I'm going to be lighting our candle, I want all of us to remember and take this opportunity. Sorry, I will be lighting the candle as we continue with this. But just to remind ourselves that as part of our program, when we light our candle, we are recognizing and remembering all the important people, all the important stalwarts that have gone through the many 50 years in NACCW, remembering and acknowledging all our stalwarts that are part of our program and are part of this NACCW journey. And we take this moment to recognize NACCW's role as a strong root that has stemmed from a tiny seed of hope for our children. And these roots have created a foundation for us that was laid 50 years ago. And for that little period of time, we have come a long way on this journey to reach professionalism in child and youth care. So with their continued nurturing and with their continued care that has been provided by NACCW, we have been able to develop our profession and brought it to the state where it is now recognized as a proper profession, both within our country, but also recognized throughout the world, that we are now an established profession functioning within the regulations and the legislative requirements of a country in terms of providing productive and efficient child and youth care services in the field. So with that, I'm going to move on. I will continue with the lighting of the candle in a while, and it will stay lit throughout the day of day 2 program. But we will now move into the agenda items for this morning. And as you would see on your program, we start off with a beautiful initiative that is going to comprise of a panel discussion on the history and status of residential care in South Africa. So on our panel, we have three very long-standing stalwarts of NACCW, known in the profession, and they are Mr. Francisco Cornelius, Mrs. Mandy Goebel, and Ms. Pume Lutuli. So before I hand over to them, I'm just going to share a little bit about each of our presenters for the panel discussion, and then we'll hand over to them. The panel discussion, Francisco. He's a child and youth care worker with 36 years of experience in child and youth care services, and he has been involved in various capacities during these years. He is currently the director of Lily Blom House in Crawford since 2009. His qualifications include residential care through Cape Town Technikon, the ACE Education, Adult Education Program, through UCT qualifications. He has done his postgraduate diploma in Child and Family Studies, and as a project management completed in Varsity College. He was the facilitator in training in child and youth care workers for many, many years, and sits now as our national treasurer for NACCW. He served as the chairperson of the Free State Province from 2001 to 2003, and as the national chairperson for NACCW from 2003 to 2006. He has represented NACCW at national and international conferences, and he is currently serving as the ministerial appointee on the Council for Social Service Practitioners. He was awarded an honorary membership for his contributions over 36 years in promoting and advocating professionalism for child and youth care work in our country. Our second panel discussion person and speaker is Mandy Goebel. And for Mandy, she completed a social work degree in 1989, and she began her work at Durban Child and Youth Care Center in February 1990 as a residential social worker. She then worked in 1992 to 1994 as a childcare supervisor, and since 1994, she stepped up as the director for Durban Child and Youth Care Center, which she's currently holding. In this long span of time in the child and youth care field, she's also been involved in many programs, many trainings, and she's been a trainer for NACCW as well for short courses, and been the provincial chairperson for our KZN in PEC between 2001 2004. She's been the vice chairperson between 2004 and 2008, and she is the coordinator for many years as the coordinator of our Principals Forum for KZN, and is currently still the coordinator. She served as a member of the DQA team for NACCW on 2 occasions between 2022 and 2024. And she also is the NPO representative on 2 DSD-led investigations that happened between 22 and 24. Further, she's been a guest speaker also and a guest lecturer for DUT, and at some point been a UNISA supervisor as well, who's marked for them. So we can see from 2 of them already, we have a very rich panel, and this panel is included by our third speaker, who is Pumi, Non-Pumelelo Gloria Ntuli, and she's from the DSD Gauteng office. And Pulu has a bachelor's degree in social work at the moment, but she started off initially and began in 2000 with her BQCC in child and youth care, and then she moved on to do her diploma in child and youth development and completed her BTech degree in child and youth care as well through UNISA. So she holds a BTech degree in child and youth care as well as a bachelor's in social work. She has worked as a child and youth care team leader and a supervisor, and she was also the first child and youth care worker to be appointed as an assistant director with the head office from 2015 to 2022. And from 2022 till present, she is the first child and youth care worker. I think we can applaud her on that. The first child and youth care worker um, appointed as a head of institution for the Desmond Tutu Child and Youth Care Center. So Pumi has served on the professional board of Child and Youth Care Work as a ministerial appointee in 2012, and she is the author and publisher of a book called Until Healing Takes Place. And she has presently been very involved with NSCCW in presenting many different papers at conferences. So I'd like for you this morning to put your hands together and applaud all our three stalwarts who are going to take on and continue with the discussion, the panel discussion. And the panel discussion today is looking at specifically at the history and the status of residential care in South Africa. So I now hand over to Francisco and to the rest of the panel speakers to take us through. Thank you.
Good morning, Fiona, and all our colleagues in the field across the world. Congratulations on celebrating jointly this International Child and Youth Care Week celebrations. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be able to share some of my information that I've gathered over the years. And of course, a lot of the information I'll be sharing has been documented by other researchers as well. I'd like to start and also just reiterate what Fiona started saying, that this is a joint panel discussion and there are three of us who will be sharing the platform. And so we won't be flashing any PowerPoint presentations. We'll be speaking to it. And hopefully we'll manage to get through in time. I'd like to start my presentation with a slide that actually depicts what Miriam Makeba said, so as to create a backdrop for the actual discussion, which is focusing on the history of the social welfare services in South Africa. And Miriam Makeba said, our children have to know what happened in the past because they must know where we come from and where we are to better know where we are going. And I think that, as I said, would be sort of a backdrop or foundation for us to continue this discussion. Now, the history of social welfare links to the history of this country, which in many people's minds might be the start in 1652. However, it is much earlier than that, because we've had visitors to the shores of South Africa from the Spanish countries, from Portuguese as well. And so it dates back to around the 14th century, when Europeans, especially the Spanish and the Portuguese, landed in the Cape, Mossel Bay, and Natal. And many of them were missionaries who tried to bring religion, as they know it, amongst the inhabitants of those regions they landed. So, and this was followed by the Irish soldiers who were in skirmishes with the inhabitants of the eastern parts of the Cape of Good Hope, and of course further down to Natal. Then in 1652, which we commonly then called the family period, and I'll explain a little bit why I refer to it as the family period. The Dutch and the French arrived around 1652 through to the 1800s. And they were Protestants who then drove the Catholics out, and in similar fashion were involved in skirmishes with the locals trying to settle in and around Cape. Now, we recognize that the fights for territory took place and many children were then left homeless or without parents, or at least one parent. And of course, the pressures put on these families forced them in a way to start providing as surviving families to the children who were left destitute. For the Europeans, the Khoikhoi inhabitants, the slaves from Java and the black slaves, it was equally very difficult having many children left without parents because of the skirmishes that later evolved into wars. As a result, the surviving families were then seen as the cornerstones of welfare for the orphans and the struggling individuals who were left destitute. But what was obviously significant was that the settlers could provide for their families, taking in the children, whilst the locals could not. The next period that I'd like to highlight is called the period of church activity, which follows now, because it obviously became too much for the families to provide for the orphans and the destitute, and the churches stepped in to provide institutional care, which was a form of care for the neglected children during that time. This was obviously based also then on European models. The so-called House for Children, which was established by the Dutch Reformed Church and the Lutheran Church authorities in Cape Town in and around 1814, was commonly known at that stage the Zuid-Afrikaanse Weeshuis, or if you translate into English, the South African Orphanage, which today is called SA Kinderhuis, making it the oldest recorded NGO institution for orphans and vulnerable children in the country. This was followed by 4 Anglican orphanages, namely St. George's Home in 1862, Lilybloem House in 1868, and the other 2 much later. And obviously across the country, as the settlers came in and settled in other parts of the country, the churches came and did the same. During the period 1864 to 1899, 17 institutions for children were established, mainly for whites, and only 1, a reformatory for non-white children. Again, it was the Dutch Reformed Church, Anglican Church, Moravians, Lutheran, Methodist, and Catholic churches who took the lead in the establishment of these institutions. The early 1900s saw more voluntary welfare organizations come into existence. And this was a response to the devastation of the Boer War and other illnesses who left many people destitute and in need of care and protection services. These services were for the older people, chronically ill, those who needed convalescence, and children. Around 1934, there was a move called the Volks Congress, Congress of the People, if you translate it into English. And this came about as a result of the Carnegie Commission's investigation into the poverty in South Africa. The Carnegie Commission was established in New York to investigate the poverty amongst the whites in the country. The results of the commission then led to extensive training of sociologists and social workers at university level. So you can see along the lines of around 1934, that is when there was some sort of recognition and also more a move towards a qualification for people working in the space of social services. I just want to say at this stage, there's a note that one of the first social workers was Charlotte Makeke. She, however, did not have a qualification when she was providing social work services, but because of her involvement in the community, and later on in life, she was able to do some studies in social work, and hence being recognized as the first social worker, black social worker, in the country. Around 1937, we see the establishment of the Department of Welfare. So prior to this, all social welfare services and staff resided under the Department of Labor. Further to the outcomes of the Carnegie Commission to government, The government then established this welfare department who provided services in all 4 of the provinces with the aim of rehabilitating the socially unjust. And back then, South Africa had only 4 provinces: the Cape, the Transvaal, Natal, and the Free State. Now, we come to a very dubious period or era of in South Africa between the 1947 to 1992, and that was called the era of apartheid. And so everybody would be mindful of the fact that that is when the National Party came to power, apartheid policies were implemented. There was many different acts like prohibition of mixed marriages, population registration, separation of people in separate communities, the Bantu Education Act. And I want to just pause there because it was at that time where we saw the evacuation of Sophiatown, the killings in Sharpeville, and when the Bantu Education Act was established, at the same time, there was the creation of 10 Bantustans around 1959, and that brought about 14 different social welfare systems in the country. South Africa the Republic of South Africa was established. And so again, new legal instruments came into play. In 1962, the United Nations General Assembly called for sanctions against South Africa. All of what I'm mentioning contributed to the state of the people in the country. And as we know, with violence, there are displacements and people are in need of care and protection. Around 1970, when the Black Homeland Citizenship Bill was established, it again distanced people from each other. In 1976, the worst racial violence took place in South Africa. In Soweto, it's recorded that 575 people lost their lives. Now, another significant date to remember, 1978. Parliament passes the very first fundraising and national welfare and social work acts in the country, which effectively then meant that the state will control the welfare. In 83, a lot of things changed. In 86, the past laws were repealed, but it already had left a very serious mark on our communities. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison and things started changing. So we then sort of come to the era that we know. And in 1994, with the establishment of the first democratic country, there was a preamble of a constitution of South Africa. And I'd like to read this quickly. The preamble reads thus: "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights, so as to lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law, so as to improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person and build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations." What brings us to where the legislation came from to where the legislation is right now. So the first social welfare piece of legislation that is documented was in 1921, and it had reference to the reformatories. the reformatory for so-called black children or non-white children. The next piece of legislation that is documented is the Department of Social Development in 1937. Then in 1994, with the launch, the RDP which was launched in 1994, the White Paper for Social Welfare was established. Now remember, the Department for Welfare was previously called the Department of Welfare. And in July of 2000, there was a renaming of this department. So I'm going to quickly just mention a few of the acts that affects us in the space that we work as child and youth care workers. So my heading says the old and the new legislation for children's welfare services in the Republic of South Africa. The first one that we recognized was that there was actually a Children's Protection Act in 1913. Then there was a 1921 Child Maintenance Grants Act, which was more for pensions for mothers. Then there was the Reformatory Service Act in 1935, and this dealt with the establishment and operations of juvenile reformatories. Then, in 1960, we had the very first Children's Act, and it was Act number 33 of 1960. And it included the maintenance and management of schools of industries and reformatories. Then, 1965, we saw the first amendment of the Children's Act. In 1973, another amendment of the Children's Act. In 1976, another amendment of the Children's Act. And in 1977, another amendment of the Children's Act, which then brought us to the establishment of a new act in 1983. That was called the Child Care Act 74 of 1983. There was a Child Care Amendment Act in 1991, and again the Child Care Amendment Act in 1996. And of course, historically now we're sitting with the new Children's Act 38 of 2005, and it had 3 amendments, but we recognize that there's a Children's Amendment Act 41 of 2007. Why is this important? I think we need to understand and recognize that the adoption of a social development model was an extension of the institutional model. And of course, it was heavily influenced by the British and the North American literature and models. But we wanted to have our own, which was more indigenous to the South African people. And hence the new act, which actually seeks indigenization of social welfare policies and practice and social work models and practices. The white paper had a vision and a mission. The vision read a welfare system which facilitates the human development, the development of human capacity and self-reliance within a caring, enabling, and socio-economic environment. The mission statement reads as follows: to serve and build a self-reliant nation in partnership with stakeholders through an integrated social welfare system, which maximizes its existing potential and which is equitable, sustainable, accessible, people-centered, and developmental. Now, that was the old history into the new history, and Mandy will now take over and speak more on the current residential and other kind of services that we have at the moment available to people in the country. Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Francisco. That's quite a hard act to follow, but nevertheless, I'm going to do my best. I just wanted to start by, again, just saying good morning. I hope everyone is listening as intently as what I have. I think the history is always so helpful to put into context where we are. And we often hear people saying that history informs our present, and certainly we need to learn from history so we don't make the same mistakes going forward. I want to just further say what a great privilege this is for all of us who've been involved in the field of child and youth care, specifically residential care. It feels sometimes that our voices get forgotten, and so it's wonderful to have this opportunity just to highlight how much the changes that have happened in our country and specifically in welfare have impacted on what it is that we do with children. I'd especially like to thank NACCW. It's a privilege to be able to be a part of this panel discussion, but I want to just emphasize how everything that has been achieved in this field has really stemmed from the opportunities that were made available by NACCW to those of us who were there in the early 1990s. The fact that NACCW opened doors to transformational training that was available and took us in and guided us and supported us and helped us believe that change was possible and that we, in fact, could become those agents of change has really made a huge impact on what has been achieved in residential child and youth care. So further to what Francisco was saying, as things were changing in the country, there was a pressure that was building up in orphanages, as they were then known, and children's homes that had been founded in those late 1800s and the early 1900s. And there was this pressure. At the time, it wasn't 100% clear what it was going to look like, but children's homes began to feel the pressure to change the way services were provided to children. And that really came about from a growing awareness of human development, just generally, a growing awareness of human development. There was a developing concept of childhood and child development that became more and more evident. There had also been findings from research on the effects of institutionalization on an international platform, not necessarily only here in South Africa. And those findings were very concerning, and there was certainly a desire to look at how things can be done differently. And then also residential care became more expensive. I recently found an annual financial report from the 60s, and in those days already, the board was complaining about the cost of maintenance on old buildings. So fast forward almost 70 years, and it's still something that is highlighted each year when we put forward our financials. So following on from that, what truly did spark transformation of services in child and youth care centres was the Interministerial Committee on Young People at Risk. And that had been established in June of 1995. It was our former president, Nelson Mandela, who called for it. And we really do have him to thank for the achievements that have been made so far. It played a crucial role, that particular commission, in South Africa's development when it comes to transformation. It saw the beginning of the transformation of services. It identified numerous challenges, including the fragmented service delivery. We could see that there was a focus on pathology rather than strengths, and further that there were inadequate services. And of particular concern was the fact that there were no services almost in rural areas. And as Francisco mentioned, we then saw the white paper that was developed, and it outlined a new developmental paradigm, which emphasized empowerment and addressing these inequalities. What we also saw in the early or the mid-1990s was the opportunity to pilot transformational models. And government, through the department, through welfare, identified particular models. And those were very helpful because those of us involved in NACCW were able to access information and there was opportunities to implement these innovative models, to replicate them. And Zeni Dambadu was really helpful in ensuring that those of us that had the opportunity, because our boards were willing to start moving towards this change, she guided us and she provided us with everything that we needed in terms of training to be able to start believing that we too could work in a different way. And so it was during this time, through the piloting of transformational models, that we saw family preservation as a model developing in our country, reunification as part of the family preservation model, focusing on children, looking at what is the best interest of the child. We started using terms such as put the child in the center, the child must always be the focus. Even the way in which we worked with families and understood or tried to understand families, there was a change in the mindset of those of us working in the space of child and youth care centers to start looking at families differently, looking at the potential, looking at the strengths that existed. And then, of course, child participation and what that actually means, because we came from a history where there was little opportunity even for adults to be participating. But now we needed to start looking at ways of ensuring that children participated in their present, and then also participated in decisions that needed to be made for their future. The developmental approach was, of course, a huge one for many of us who were able to access that training. It was life-changing, because for those of us who have worked with this approach for many years, we know that it is meaningless unless or until it's internalized. Once it's internalized, then it becomes alive. And that was so much of the training that was available during this transformational period. The challenge to us to look outside of who we were, to look at, to take off the rose-tinted glasses in terms of changes that had happened in the country. We were all thrown into this pot together, bringing in different life experiences, different prejudices, different understandings of the way South Africa had been, and then tasked with needing to find ways of coming together towards the common purpose of improving services for children. And of course, another big model that we worked with was also strengths-based work. It was really a challenge for so many people who had been in the field for a long time to be able to start looking at children, working with children, and looking for strengths before looking at the developmental areas. And even the labeling of developmental area. We had spoken about weaknesses, and now we were talking about weaknesses and opportunity for growth. Excuse me. Following that period of time, where there was a lot of innovation, a lot of excitement, a lot of training, and at times we often felt overloaded by the training. We wanted just a gap to be able to bring the training back into our organizations and let it settle and kind of sink into the bones. But there was always a new opportunity, and so we were constantly grabbing the opportunities for training that was available. And through the trainings, because sometimes it wasn't necessarily just local, but it was in other places of the country, we were able to meet other people in different provinces. We were able to network, we were able to share ideas. And it was really a time of creativity. And then the Children's Act became the next big thing in our history. And when I say the next big thing, because the Children's Act turned on its head what we had been doing in child and youth care centers even further. They're specifically referencing Chapter 13 of the Children's Act, which defines the core business of a child and youth care center. So having been known as orphanages, having been called, that transition period, no longer orphanage, now a children's home, suddenly we became child and youth care centers. And the Act is very clear in defining the core business of the Child and Youth Care Centre, basically specifying very clearly that we need to be therapeutic spaces. We need to offer therapeutic programs, that these programs need to be designed specifically for children who need to be placed in residential care, which is outside of the family environment. And so there were new challenges that came about. And although the Act, we talk about the Act of 2005, it was towards 2009 and early into 2010 that we were offered opportunities to engage directly with the Act and tease it out and understand what it was going to mean for our child and youth care centres. And so there were new things that we started learning about, the importance of observation and assessment of children, that when children came into our centres, there needed to be opportunities for counselling that was provided for them, as well as access and referral to other treatments, that the goal needed to be reintegration with family, with community. And that we needed to look at different categories of children, because up until that time, children's homes were quite picky and choosy around who they allowed to be admitted into their programs. And the Act was very specific that we needed to include children who had experienced or were experiencing all kinds of challenges, such as children who are trafficked, those who have been sexually abused, even children that needed to be moved from one space to another and needed a safe space to rest in while they were being observed and assessed and offered emergency treatment or counselling. And then there was also street children, which to a large extent had been neglected. So then we moved to the new and exciting opportunities that the Act offered. And suddenly there was this possibility of us looking and revising our programs and making adjustments, or including new innovative programs to look at children with disability or chronic illnesses, to focus in on developmental programming and what that actually meant, to be able to offer treatment for substance use within the program, instead of taking our children out of program and sending them to treatment centres, which largely did not have programs for teenagers and younger children, because in that period of time we realized that there were children as young as 11 who were addicted to substances. And then, of course, the psychiatric conditions that children have to deal with, and then programs looking specifically at aftercare and transition. I think one of the most frustrating things, and it remains a frustration, is that whilst many child and youth care centres who over the years have been able to access the intellectual capacity and the experience and the expertise and the desire and the passion to provide these programs, what has always been a hindrance is the lack of adequate funding. And it's quite frustrating when you sit with good programs and you're not able to actually implement them. So we saw this change, this transition, where after the initial transformation that happened within the child and youth care setting, that we moved towards this this period of where we needed to focus more on the actual services that were provided. We needed to look at how effective those services were. So there was this change in the actual service that was provided to children within the centre. We started focusing on grasping the fact that children coming into child and youth care centres needed to come in for specific period of times. It needed to be a short-term intervention, not children languishing in care for decades sometimes. that our intervention needed to be goal-directed, and that developmental assessment would provide that direction, that our space within the Child and Youth Care Centre needed to be a life space where work was happening, that therapeutic work wasn't done in that 1 hour that children spent in the office with their social worker, but it was happening every minute from the morning through to the night, and even throughout the night in some cases, as child and youth care workers were living alongside children, working alongside them. And then, of course, specialized programs within the residential program. And then, of course, the one area that I think we still struggle with in child and youth care centres, and that is dealing with children with severe emotional and behavioural issues. Not necessarily because we don't have the capacity, but the history has left us with very, very ancient buildings that don't always provide the sense of containment that is required for us to work effectively with that group of children. So there were organizational changes that had to happen to support transformation of services. Before the Children's Act, these were changes that were recommended, that were needed in order for us to work within the various different pilots that were available. But it was almost like a period of preparation when the Children's Act then came into play. We saw the legal requirement for boards of management to change, for the staffing structure to change, to have policy and procedure in place, and to ensure that those the policy and procedure was living, not just sitting on a piece of paper, in a file in your office, that programs had to be goal-directed. There needed to be a purpose and a reason for them. We had to know what we wanted to achieve and what the outcomes were going to look at. So there was a lot of change in some cases. So for child and youth care centres who had opened themselves up to the opportunity presented to them during the period of the IMC and then the piloting of those programs, that transformation was a little easier. For those who did not open themselves up to it, when it reached the point where now the Act and therefore legislation made it a requirement, it became somewhat more difficult. I focus specifically here on the staffing in child and youth care centres. There was suddenly this move towards having a middle management. Historically, there was the board who were very involved directly in day-to-day operations. And then there was the director or the principal, and then the social workers. But this period saw a shift. There suddenly became new opportunities for child and youth care workers, because we knew that child and youth care workers working online needed to be supervised by child and youth care workers. And so we saw the development of this middle management where joining the director and the social worker or senior childcare workers, managers who are child and youth care workers. And so the provision of services and how that was determined and how it was carried out became more holistic. We saw a flurry of training for all categories of staff, for social workers, for child and youth care workers, but specifically for child and youth care workers, and then linked with what Donald said, just in that journey towards accredited training. We also saw the need to ensure that there was in-service training that was embedded in child and youth care centres, because we recognise that sending child and youth care workers for training without providing with them with the support to be able to implement that training when they return to the centre really made it a wasted exercise. And aside from the in-service training, that there needed to be a system of formal supervision where that learning and then trying to put it into practice could be formalized and worked through, because the introduction of annual appraisals, for instance, helped ensure that child and youth care workers were clear on the areas of development that they wanted to focus on, and then, of course, building from that developmental plans, which focused on professional as well as personal development. Well, in ending, what I wanted to do was just kind of highlight the way I've experienced the past 30 years of our history in residential child and youth care. For me, there was the first phase, which was transformation, which called for fundamental changes. It impacted the structure and the character of our organizations, and it challenged us, it called us, it insisted that we looked at changing from one way of being to another. And for many, that was a very painful period because of the timing with changes that were happening in our country. For others, it was just a great opportunity to do things differently. And then the second phase was a phase of taking those changes and implementing them, reinventing ourselves, re-envisaging what it was that we were going to be doing as child and youth care centres. And then the third phase, which is what I call the transitioning, once legislation made it very clear that this is the requirement if you're going to be registered as a child and youth care centre and if you're going to continue to operate. For me, the transitioning was this gradual process, one that we're still in, where we've had the opportunity to reorientate ourselves, and we have been able to find meaning in the change situation that we find ourselves in. And that situation is not necessarily only the historical, but also where we sit today, because phase 4, which really talks to that period of transitioning, is looking at what the Children's Act tells us as child and youth care centres we need to be doing in order to be in compliance. So norms and standards, which I know is sometimes a very contentious issue for many, because we have such a large gap between funding and the operational costs. There is always a tension between what we know is right in terms of norms and standards, because it is in the best interest of children, but what we can do and what we're limited with in terms of financial resources. And so for me, this last phase, what I've called phase 5, is really survival. How do we survive in this new place as child and youth care centres, where so much change has taken place in a fairly short space of time, where we understand and know the importance of what the Act provides for and tells us that we need to have in place, but how do we do that when we are challenged with the reality of a field where resources just don't meet the requirement? And so before I hand over to the next person speaking on our panel, I just want to end with this one quote. It's a very ancient one, which seemed fitting since we're talking about history, from Socrates. And what he says is, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And so as we move on, it's about the new thing that we can do in child and youth care. Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy and Francisco, for well presented a presentation for acknowledging our week as child and youth care workers. I greet you all colleagues. My name is Nompumelelo, like has been introduced when we started the program. I'm not feeling well today, so I'll be short and brief myself. But I just want to open with the quote of Desmond Tutu that says, if you are neutral in the situation of injustice, you have chosen to side with the oppressor. And having said that, as child and youth care workers, we know that we always stand for the rights of the children. And my colleagues have elaborated very well with that to say we stand for the rights of the children. I'm not going to repeat that. But with me, I just want to go straight to the regulation and moving forward to say what is it that has happened in our field recently. As it had been said that we were regulated in 2014, and I can tell you now, we tried our best to make sure as government DSD to make sure that our childcare workers are registered and are compliant with the council. And recently we've been looking at those ones who are about to go on pension and what can we do with them, and they are 63, 64 approaching their pension and they cannot be sent to school, of course. So we will be placing them in places where they can still work because we all need to support our families. We'll be placing them in places where they can still function and work until they are ready to go, because we don't want to traumatize them with books and so forth. But most of the child and youth care workers at DSD are registered and are compliant with the regulations. Having said that, we also find challenges to say as DSD ourselves, we still have challenges that we are faced with as child and youth care workers to say, as much as child and youth care workers are compliant with the registration, the challenges are the DSD also is not moving very fast in making sure that job descriptions and advert are talking to the regulations as well. So that is a very big challenge that we still faced with, hoping that the stakeholders that are involved, which will be DSD nationally and board, of course, and the employer, different employees who employ people, to say, guys, can we really push in that DSD also recognizes people as they are registered, and also to make sure that the adverts that are going out for advertising posts are talking to the levels that are there on the regulation. That was our problem. But then going to a developmental assessment, which I need to elaborate a little bit of that, because I think Mandy, you've touched in different ways to say the involvement, the inclusiveness, all the things. I think as child and youth care workers, we really need to take ourselves serious as that, because we are a multidisciplinary team. And when we refuse or we are reluctant to join the MDT, then we are missing an opportunity to get to know our clients on admission, because when we sit on developmental assessment, when the child enters the system, it is very, very important. Then we'll be able to know what is it that I need to plan for this child as a child and youth care worker myself. So if we don't sit in such platforms, we are missing an opportunity to plan and not to do programs that are of a blanket rule. So we need to sit in those MDT, guys. Let's make our voice heard. Let's advocate for our client. So I'm saying that to the developmental assessment, let's sit there. Let's be involved in all four intervention aspects, which are prevention, early intervention, statutory, and continuum of care. Because if we don't involve ourselves in that, we will be missing an opportunity to work with the children. Going to the training of child and youth care workers, I think my colleagues, two speakers, have elaborated. I don't have to go further, but it is still a challenge, I must say, because our training is more focused on auxiliary level. And I know it's only the DUT that is offering a formal qualification at a higher level. So I know while I was serving in the council, we were trying our best, and I think they still continue, those who are sitting there, to try to open the other avenues so that we can train. People are eager to learn and to go professionally, and we really need to do that. And those with the RPL, can they also make sure that they provide what they can provide to be part of the program of RPL, because it is very important that we hold a qualification so that we get a professional when we work with our clients. And then the other issue that I would talk to, it's the appraisal, which is a very burning issue. I know at DSD, I'm not sure in other NGOs and whatever, but in government, it is a very serious, thorny issue, which will make sometimes and most of the time create enemies that are not necessary. Guys, let's read our key performance areas as a child and youth care workers, because sometimes when people come at the end of the year, when they need to be rated, then you ask them, what is the expertise? What are the skills that you are having in order to be able to produce this outcome? A person said, no, I was not told like that, but it is on your agreement. So I'm saying to our sector, we've moved in a place where we'd sign things that we didn't read. Let's read, let's interrogate our document, and let's make sure that we ask if we are not sure of our agreement. I think we've got the challenge at DSD, but people now are empowered more to say, read your key PA and also understand and know what is expected of you, so that you don't come at the end of the year where you now need to unionize the evaluation process, which is more about a job valuation and the progressive as well, because it is more, the tool is more about progressive, to say where are my strengths, where can I develop, and as a person, it's not about just rating because we need to be rated. So I'm saying to the sector, let's read our document, let's understand them, let's interrogate them, let's engage when the year starts, not only towards the end of the year. Then the implementation of Children's Act, I think my colleagues have also spoken about it. And I can tell you now, we will never be able to implement this document if we are not part of the processes of MDT, of developmental plans and all that stuff. I think at DSD, we do try our best to have the panel sitting. I think I will speak for my institution. We sit every Thursday, and I can tell you, I think other institutions do sit every week to make sure that children's panels are taking a place. Even if the outside field social worker is not present, we try our best to sit so that we implement this document called a Children's Act, because it is a very serious document that also protects our client and protects us as employees as well. So I think that for me, it's very important that we understand. But the only thing that we also need to look at, I think we need to do more of workshops, awarenesses, and also try to interpret it in different languages, because sometimes it could be a barrier that people don't implement things because they don't understand them in their own languages. So I think, having said that, we need to make sure going out of these sessions that, do we have enough awarenesses? Do we have enough in-service trainings? Do people who are empowered with knowledge distribute it to other colleagues? I think we need to look at that. Then the last point that I would talk to is the issue of administration of medication. And I know that the council has issued a document a few years ago about this issue. And in DSD, it was a very thorny issue. I was even asked by the DDGK to make sure that I do a procedure and protocols of issuing of medication, because it was a serious thing, and having to consult with SANCA as well, who are also not comfortable with us doing what we want to do. But I must report to you guys that at DSD, we were lucky, fortunately, because it goes with finance, and I understand with the NGOs who might not be exposed at that, to employ a medical staff that will issue, especially Schedule 5 of medication. And colleagues, to those who are issuing medication, let's make sure we read the content of what we are issuing. Let's make sure we record as well, because you might be issuing a medication and then you don't record. Then I come on duty in the same environment, I issue the same medication that you have issued. Let's read I think the medication's name, to say, am I giving Mpumi the right dose, the right medication that I'm supposed to be doing? Because if we don't do that, then we can be found to be negligent of what we're supposed to be doing. But to those who are not issuing, but we cannot leave children dying because we are said not to be issuing that. I think we are responsible as well to make sure that we care for children in a very holistic way, and we understand that. And I'm saying, let's also log our medication. Let's make sure that all institutions, the NGOs, the government institution, let's have procedures in place so that when we employ people, we make sure we teach them as well. We just don't leave them with the responsibilities to issue things. We teach them on how do you log the medication. Is the place cool, not in the sun? Is the medication still good to be given to our clients? Because really, it is the life that we're working on. It's somebody's life, and we need to make sure that we take care of that. And I've got pictures of the do's and don'ts of medication. I think I would forward, Zeni has my presentation. They can share it with others to say, how do we log? We don't put in one basket. There must be names of a client. It must also be recorded who prescribed that medication and the dosage as well. We really need to look at that so that we don't do hazards when we're trying to assist our client as well. And I think that's the end of my presentation, because I was just giving where we come from, and just to say something on training as well. I think it is very important to state that when I always submit my CVs, and you'll see that it always have the BQCC in 2000, and people always ask me that, Mpumi, is it still relevant? Then I say, yes, it is still relevant, because this is where I started, guys. And it was a very honor and privilege, and I'm humbled to say, you know what, when we try to push, let's push even harder to make sure that we break the ceiling that we think we have. And also, I think the other stakeholders that I want to say, guys, that we need to really look at it. I'm not sure how, but I would just say we need to look at the board, the HPL. I think we need to make sure that we push so that our child and youth care workers are also registered with the board for healthcare funders, where they can also practice as a private practitioners. And that, as I'm talking as a child and youth care worker myself, I do private practice, but for social work, because I've studied social work, but I cannot work as a social work because of my position at the moment. But I do private practice at the moment, and I can tell you we need to start looking at how do we then expand our profession in different sectors, because when we look at only in institution, we might be limiting ourselves. I think we can do childcare in schools, we can do childcare, aftercare in malls. During December, we can have our stores, talk to managers there to say, how do we then protect these children when their parents are doing shopping around? Are these children safe? Are they not human trafficking? Guys, let's explore, let's not limit ourselves in one sector. With those words having said, I thank you very much, and I would like to thank NACCW for continuously availing opportunities like this, because it then revives us and take us back to classroom to hear about the strength-based, child-centered, and all those. I think I was taken back to my first year, and I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our panel discussion speakers. I think they deserve a nice round of applause. I think that this entire discussion has been extremely rich for us to go back in history and to look at all the important stuff that has come out from a long history of developmental transformation that has taken place, especially with residential care facilities coming into a new age where we have to comply with so many different things. Some of the things that highlight before we go to questions quickly is just to acknowledge that, Francisco made an important comment there where he spoke about the social development model and how it actually stemmed from and developed from a residential model, because originally it was the residential model that was in place. And similarly, NACCW roots as well started in residential care and grew from residential care and expanded. And NACCW itself as an organization has to transform over the years to also make sure that it stays relevant and reaches out to the needs of the vulnerable children as identified. So with that, you would see that growth from moving from residential care with NACCW as well into all the different avenues when we go into panel 2. So I'm just going to allow for hands if there's any hands and anyone wants to offer any comment or question. And I'll ask you to Takasile, so your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to highlight or emphasize and make a plea on what Mpumi has said on that we need to make or we need to register for private practice. That is a very important issue. That is sort of like kind of like a sore point for me, because when we work or we practice wherever we are in our little corners, you see a need. Our fellows, our sister profession, social workers, some of them, they cannot do or work with children as we would as child and care workers. And they would offer us to say, oh, if you were registered, you were going to do this for me because I cannot deal with this client, all those things. So if maybe the board and everybody else can look into making sure that they speed up the process for us to register as private practitioners, that will be actually contributing on a positive level in the country, because we are the experts of child development. Anyway, I work for the Department of Justice, and anywhere we are, we excel when it comes to children and youth. We know from the back of our heads. So it's important that maybe NSCW as well can come on board to make sure that we get recognition to practice private. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joyce.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mpume and Mendy. Regarding our profession, we are being undermined so much. Social worker, they think they are superior, because each and every time, like when we are having cases regarding children, they know nothing. They know nothing, but at the end of the day, we are being undermined, sidelined, Corey. We are just, to them, we are just in jail. It's like we don't know what we are doing regarding our kids. Like the Tagasile said, that we excel in our work. We know how to deal with kids. We know how to deal with kids who are vulnerable, because at the end of the day, some of us, though we are doing like child and youth care, we are child and youth care workers, but we have studied like social sciences and other fields. But to them, social workers and social development, they undermine us like we are nothing. But and yet we are doing too much cases. Even the social worker cannot even handle them. Thank you. Please consider that. Please, NCC, consider that, and other stakeholders. Mpumelelo, please go to social development and then tell how we are feeling, because we are being sidelined like we are not elite. We are illiterate. We are just in jail. We are here for kids according to social workers and social development. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. I think it's important to hear what members are saying, but also to acknowledge that, it's not easy. We work with a very huge multidisciplinary team made up of many professions, and we must never lose sight of the fact that as professionals, we all have a role to play in making sure we do our best to provide the best care for their children that we serve. So yes, there are challenges in finding the right space and the balance between different professions. But I think it's also important to highlight the fact that we must make sure we stand up as childcare workers or whichever profession we are in to advocate for our profession as well. If you believe you're a professional and you're doing the right thing for your child, you must advocate for it. At all times, make sure you recognize yourself and the role you're playing in that child's life, which is equally important to any other profession. I think your points are noted. We'll take the next question, Tembelile. Thembisile, you can
Good morning,
unmute.
colleagues.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you very much to all the colleagues who are available today. My comment it's based on what our colleagues have already shared to highlight us to say we need to stand up for ourselves as child and youth care workers. So my advice to our colleagues, Ma'am Joyce, we have heard your voice, will be, can we be visible to all the stakeholders that are sitting in our areas? It can be Tutuzela stakeholders, it can be LAC stakeholders. We need to be visible and allow them to hear our voice in a very calm way, but showing them what you are capable of. It's saddened me to hear that at this point of time, there are child and youth care workers who are still feeling they are not being taken serious. But on my side, I would love to assure you that as your young ambassadors who have taken it from you, we are making sure that in our space, we are showing people who are child and youth care workers, what are they capable for, what are they here for, and our voice is heard. So I would love to offer an opportunity to say, our doors are open, we will leave our contact. Today we have met, we are now a big family and one will know where others are. Reach out on us to say, or even call us to come to your area to tell people about who we are and show them exactly who we are, show them our work, because we are called to do this. I am a child and youth care worker by passion, but what I do is that I excel wherever I am and I make sure that my voice is heard because I'm here to bring change. Thank you.
Thank you, Thembisile. I think that's a very important point. You need to be that voice wherever you are. Advocate for your work as well, and be strong about the fact that you do understand your work as a child and youth care worker. We'll take one last question in the interest of time. Sia Bonga, you can see a hand up there. We can take that last hand and then check if Zeni has any comments, and then we'll move on to the next panel discussion.
Good day, colleagues. Mine is on the medication administration. Isn't it that possible that the nurses can work even the night shifts for them to give the kids the medication? Well, sometimes the kids can even sick during the night. So is it possible that the nurses also can work the night shifts? Because now we have to administer the medication for the kids. That's my challenge. Because I'm looking for the sentenced youth. Thank you.
I'm not sure if that's for one of the panel members to answer or just a general question, but does anyone want to answer that?
If is there anybody who can answer the question, I think this
Yes,
could be
sorry, I'm asking from the panel.
Last time I've checked, the council told us that we're not given the right to issue medication on the children. So there are nurses who are able to do that. So now they are not working the night shifts, but the one who are working the shifts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions. I'm not sure, Mandy, Francisco, you want to respond to that question?
Well, I think Mpumi already alluded to the fact that they have some kind of documentation in place and so on, and I think we've got to consider obviously the challenges that people have. This one is specific to state institutions where they do have those kind of personnel on staff. That doesn't necessarily apply to all of us. So, and I think, in each of the different sectors, we have to look at what are the challenges and how do we address it appropriately. But as I said, Mpumi mentioned in her presentation towards the end that she has some kind of guidelines, and it can be used. It is available, and so people can maybe just work through those kind of channels to find some resolve to this challenge.
Right. Pumi, you want to respond?
Yes, thanks. I think just to add on that, to say if the question was from DSD, I think even yesterday we were having a meeting to say how best can the medical practitioner come up with the standardized operational procedure that is standard to all, because in other institutions they do work shift, in others they don't. So they are working on that. But also because of the budget cut, I think we are sitting at a very serious challenges where we cannot even contract some of the auxiliary nurses, but it is a process that the manager who's overseeing all the medical staff was given a task to come with the SOP that will be standard cutting across, and that will also look at the night shift people. So I think that is being addressed, but it will come slowly. But in the meantime, we really need to assist and make sure we follow the processes and procedures that are in place, and make sure that your institution has the processes and procedures in place so that you are guided while you are doing that, while you're still waiting for processes to unfold. And I hope I've answered that. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. I think, yes, these are ongoing challenges that we're always going to look for answers for. Zeni, is there any burning issue coming from the chats? Because we're going to move on to the panel.
All right. If I can just actually share one for each speaker. Emia says that learning about our history is important because it gives us insights into the present and the future by helping us understand the past. Studying history helps us to learn from the past mistakes and successes, understand different cultures, and it also provides a sense of identity and belonging for us as social service professions. Thank you for this Take Me Back. I think there was a lot of accolade for the presentation on history, saying it was a well prepared and thoughtful presentation. I think when we're talking about the transformative years that Mandy presented, people are saying thank you for the presentation and the flow of change and how policy and acts have shaped and added to the transformation of child and youth care in South Africa. Funding and the availability of resources remains an obstacle for many non-government organizations, limiting the number of interventions. Thanks, Mandy, for sharing such a fruitful history about the transitioning of the childcare setting. I think people have noted what how significant the child and youth care field was in the transformation, and I think there's accolades as well to Mpumi for her presentation, representing a government perspective and raising the important issues of multidisciplinary teamwork. Obviously, the issue of addressing medication. These are the new issues. And these are the new issues that need to be addressed by the childcare field. Like we say, our journey is not over. The new issues that come that require us to engage with are here. Somebody was talking about as well the forming of child protection committees and network meetings that bring together multidisciplinary teams led by childcare workers. So generally, I think that there's accolades for the three presenters on the history and status of residential childcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeni. I think residential care, we've always advocated for the fact that it is quite a specialized service offered to vulnerable children. And when we look back at history, obviously we can see that we have many child and youth care centers spanning over 120, 150 years old. So residential care is a very old profession in the country. And so there is obviously going to be lots of issues. And I think we need a whole day for that conversation around residential care. But moving forward in the spirit of time, I really do hope that all of you will stay on for the next panel because it's important we hear from others in terms of what's happening with child and youth care in the other avenues and different settings. So we move on to our next panel discussion, which is on the new child and youth care settings. And we're going to quickly do a bio and just introduce our speakers, and then we'll hand over to them. So we have Asanda Fischler, who is a youth mentorship, working youth mentorship, and she's our first presenter that's going to come on the panel. Asanda is a child and youth care professional who's got over 10 years of experience in the field of childcare. She started off working her way through NACCW as a mentor, a senior administrator, personal assistant to the deputy director. And over the years, she moved on to do her BTech in child and youth development and is currently working on her master's in child and youth care studies at the University of Strathclyde, which is under the Brian Gannon Strathclyde Scholarship. She's very involved with UCT Southern Africa Labour and Development Research Unit. And they specifically focus on, and she's the provincial coordinator for a while, on the basic package of support, which is called BPS. And that's relatively just a program that's being offered for the NEET program, which is for unemployed, for youth who are involved not in employment, education, and training. So a very important focus of what work she's doing. And currently, she's the implementation manager for the BPS program. Then we have Nontobeko, who is going to be our second presenter. She's not physically going to be here, but we have a video that we would share for her. Our third presenter is going to be Rosina. So Nontobeko, just to highlight, she's a graduate in child and youth development with duty. Also started a humble beginnings with NACCW as a mentor, and she was the project coordinator for Isibindi Isikoleni. And today, so the video we're going to watch of Nontobeko, she's actually the esteemed position of assistant director in the Department of Education under HIV/AIDS Life Skills Directorate. So that is where she's sitting. So our third presenter who's going to join us is then Rosina, who's an auxiliary child and youth care worker by profession. And she's currently employed at Uzvelo Rural Community in Mpumalanga under the RISIA program. And she's a trainer, an assessor, and a mentor and supervisor. And very involved in her mentorship program in terms of replicating Isibindi Without Borders in Zambia at the Maheba refugee settlements. And then we are very richly blessed with 4 presenters. So our fourth one is Tembi, and Tembi is a child and youth care worker in profession, and she holds a BTech degree in child and youth care as well, and her honors degree in developmental studies and project management. So a very warm welcome and applaud to all our presenters for our second panel. And I'm now going to hand over to the first speaker, which is Asanda.
Good day, colleagues and fellow child and youth care professionals. My name is Asanda Fihla, and I feel very privileged and honored to be joining you today during this very special week. As we honor NACCW's 50 years of service, not only to children and youth, but to child and youth care workers as well, and where we gathered to actually celebrate the International Child and Youth Care Week. I started off as a mentor with NACCW, and I could never sing them enough praises for the support and mentorship they provided me. And 10 years ago, when I started working, I don't think I would have ever imagined that I'd be where I am today. When I started working, I had no direction in terms of what specialty that I would be focused on. I started off with Isibindi, Community Child and Youth Care, and now I'm actually in the youth space. And a lot of the times, even when I refer to the young people that we service, I always say that children, and I need to correct myself because we work with youth that is above the age of 18 to 24. So it is not new work, but it does feel new in the sense of professionalization and recognition, because a lot of focus on the programs that are funded or implemented is mostly on young people below the age of 18. So we constantly have to keep correcting ourselves to say, okay, we're not working with children, working with youth. It does feel like it's a bit of a new space. And then so today I'd like to actually reflect on my journey in the youth mentorship space as an emerging and a powerful setting in child and youth care. So we work in a country where young people actually face a lot of real challenges. These challenges are layered. Some of them are complex. Almost 2/3 of the young people that we work with, the South African youth, are actually unemployed. Many experience poverty, there's mental health challenges, and some of them come from communities that actually have a history of violence or are currently violent. And from all of this and all of these other social challenges that our young people are dealing with, it leaves a lot of them feeling unseen, unheard, and disconnected. And this is where youth mentorship actually comes in. So it is not new in spirit, because it's work that has always been done by child and youth care workers, because we always wear different hats. But because it is growing in structure and formalization and recognition, and it is being recognized as a new setting or a vital setting in child and youth care practice, as opposed to traditional settings that we are more familiar with, such as residential care. So in our context, youth mentorship, it's not just about guiding young people or giving out advice, but it's about creating consistent, trusting, and developmental relationships between the mentor and the young person that they work with. And there's also informal mentorship, where the adult can be a caring, a carer, or a parent, or it could be an educator, or it could be somebody in the community. And also we've seen a lot of peer-to-peer mentorship as well. So it's not only formalized structures where you have, for example, in BPS, where we've got child and youth care workers that are employed as youth coaches that offer formal and structured mentorship to young people. It can be anything really, but there is a lot of work that is being done in organizations to actually formalize it as a setting where child and youth care workers can actually be employed in work. And then the heart of mentorship is connection. So in working with young people, we always try to create spaces where young people feel seen, where they feel safe, and where they feel that they are supported to actually dream and grow and become the best versions of themselves. And then I'll reflect briefly on BPS, the work that we are doing. So at BPS, we have a group of child and youth care workers. We've got a site here in Durban, another site in Orange Farm, and another in Atlantis. And in all these three sites, we have qualified child and youth care workers who are then employed as youth coaches, and then they are trained on the BPS approach. And then they offer coaching to young people who are NEET, not in education, employment, or training, and then with the hope that young people can actually be linked to opportunities. So we don't really provide work employment, but we do work with a lot of stakeholders, so that young people are safely referred and traced while they're still in the system. So BPS is one of programs that are focusing on youth specifically, and it embodies mentorship in the sense that it centers relationships, it fosters a sense of agency in young people. It helps young people to get a sense of belonging, because a lot of the youth that we work with, fresh from high school, so last year's past matriculants, who are currently in gap years or at home and are not doing anything, they then come to BPS, and they actually have a community where they can have a sense of belonging, they can come together, their peers, they can make new friendships, because a lot of the times their previous friends would have gone off to university while they are left at home because they're not able to actually take up further education into tertiary. And then previously, I've also worked at Columba Leadership, where alumni who were part of the Columba program actually come back to schools to mentor the other learners. So there's also peer-to-peer engagement, and also apart from the young people, the Columba alumni coming back within the school setting as well, there are systems that have been set up where you have a group of educators that are working with learners from grade 10 to grade 12 and offer ongoing mentorship, especially when the school engagement officers are actually not at the school because they can't be there daily. And then also at NECCW, I think that's where I learned mentorship, because I started off as a mentor to child and youth care workers. And I think that is where my love for mentorship actually grew, because as I was mentoring child and youth care workers, they were also mentoring young people from the communities, and I was also being mentored. We had mentor supervisors, we had senior mentors, but Rosina will speak into mentorship, so I won't dwell much on the work done by NECCW, but mentorship is basically at the heart of child and youth care. And for this week's theme, as we're celebrating global belonging, when I was trying to actually think of what I wanted to share today, I found myself asking the question of How do young people experience belonging locally? What are we doing locally to make sure that our young people actually have a safe space to belong? And then mentorship answers this by offering identity affirmation, where young people feel that they are understood and they can be who they want to be without feeling judged. It offers safe spaces where young people are allowed to be vulnerable, and it does help to give a sense of hope and direction to young people, especially those who are still neat and trying to find their next trajectory. And then I'm not going to be too long because I was only given 10 minutes. But in closing, I just want to highlight or to emphasize that it is not a new setting. It's work that has always been done from generations. And also in terms of settings, you do find mentorship in schools. You do find mentorship when you go to clinics. There are people that are employed. Clinics do have youth-friendly spaces. You do find mentorship even online. There's a lot of platforms where actually people are offering structured mentorship. And I do feel that there is a setting where child and youth care workers actually need, it's space that child and youth care workers need to take up and apply for those opportunities. It is youth-centered. Like I said, that a lot of the work is relational. It's relational work. It's not just the service. It's not just about linking a young person up or referring them for a service, but the coach or the youth coach builds a relationship with the young person, and they work and they journey with the young person. They hold their hand. And in doing that, then the young person is able to feel that they are fully supported. And they're most likely to succeed, as opposed to a young person who is trying to navigate life post high school without any support from a formal structure, formal system. But of course, it's not without its challenges. Like any setting that you would work at, there are challenges that we do face. Sometimes we have to pause and ask ourselves that how do we actually ensure that the mentorship that we're providing to young people is safe and that it's quality work? How do we help our youth coaches or child and youth care workers to actually debrief from their caseloads? Because the coaching, it's on a one-on-one basis from the youth coach to the young person. So we constantly have to provide safe spaces for our teams as well, where they can come back to debrief and manage their caseloads. And there's a lot of opportunities also in the youth mentorship space. There's opportunity to build peer mentorship or to strengthen that, and also to use technology wisely in terms of offering remote mentorship to young people. And then in closing, I just want to thank NACCW for their service. 50 years is a long time. Some of us were not even born then, so I feel privileged and very honored to actually have been part of NACCW, and for the contribution that they made into my career and into who I am today. And I would like to thank every child and youth care worker, every youth worker, every peer mentor that is out there and mentoring young people. Thank you for working with our youth so that they feel supported and the world doesn't feel a very heavy place. As a young person, life can be overwhelming. It's difficult to navigate and to find yourself. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone for this beautiful platform. It really has been great to listen to all the speakers and to just gather and remind ourselves of how important and how beautiful the work that we do is. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Right, thank you. We're going to move on to the second speaker. I think continue.
Good afternoon to everyone, the esteemed panelists and the esteemed guest, as well as my ex-colleagues watching me from every part of South Africa. I would like to begin by thanking the NACCW for this opportunity. I stand before you having been a duty student who was later presented with an opportunity to work at the NACCW as a mentor in 2014, and later was promoted internally as a project coordinator for the Isibindi Ezikoleni program until just recently this year, February 2025, where I left as my expertise of child and youth care work was needed elsewhere. And I stand before you today as the Assistant Director under the HIV and Life Skills Directorate in the Special Needs Education Department in the Department of Education. As child and youth care workers working in the education sector, we have a unique opportunity to make lasting impacts on the lives of learners. Our role extends far and beyond the classroom as we navigate the complex web of relationships, challenges, and the achievements that shape the child's educational journey. One of our most rewarding aspects of our work is building relationships with learners by taking the time to understand their individual needs, their interests, as well as their struggles. We can then create a supportive environment that fosters growth, resilience, and academic success. Whether it's through one-on-one session, group sessions, or simply just by being a listening ear, our presence can be a game changer in the learners who are facing a lot of challenges. Our work also involves working closely with educators, families, and other stakeholders. And by working together, we can identify areas where learners need extra support and develop a targeted intervention that actually addresses their specific needs. This might also involve providing emotional support, facilitating life skills development, or connecting families with the community resources that are in and around them. And of course, our work is not without its challenges. We often work with learners who have experienced trauma, poverty, and all forms of abuse. We may encounter resistance from learners who are struggling to trust adults, and we may face other systematic barriers that limit our ability to provide supports that the learners need. Despite these challenges, the reward of working as a child and youth care worker in an educational sector are immense. There's nothing quite like seeing a learner face light up as we finally grasp a concept or achieve a long-held goal. There is no greater joy than watching the learner develop the confidence and the resilience they need to succeed in life. As we continue to navigate the complexities in the education sector, I believe that it's essential that we prioritize self-care and professional development, and also working with other professions. And by taking care of ourselves and staying up to date with the best practices and working together with other professionals, we can provide the highest level of support to the learners and making lasting impacts in their lives. In conclusion, working as a child and youth care worker in the education sector is a privilege and a responsibility. We're not only just supporting learners, but we are shaping the next generation of leaders, thinkers, citizens. So let's continue to work to create a brighter future for all learners and to make a positive impact that will last a lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We acknowledge that video that was presented for non-tobacco. The next panel speaker we move on to is Rosina.
Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity, especially to NSCCW, that we get such opportunity where we can share and look back from where we started up to now. The person speaking is Rosina, as has been said already. I'm going to present the program of the CYC in the community. Who is the CYC in the community? We are working for the program called Rusika, which is from a Tsonga word, means resilient. Our aim is all to bring the resilient or awaken the resilience in the life of the children. Community CYC. The work of the community CYC involves individual assessment of children they work with. The assessment must be done involving the child and family. Children are assessed on the 7 domains, which are child protection, psychosocial support, HIV/AIDS service, health promotion, food and nutrition, economical support, and educational support. And we have the formats that we are using where all that domains are compiled, which is Ungubani and Boys and Girls Index. And then we have some highlights. Highlights of the community CYC through the Rusika Prevention and Early Intervention Program. Auxiliary CYC have been deployed in communities through the drop-in centers in Mpumalanga province. There are a number of activities done that benefit child and youth and families. They include, but not limited to, some of the identified children and youth, and sometimes the entire family do not have legal documents. CYC assists them to acquire these documents. There are child protection cases identified by the CYC, which are referred to the social workers. The CYC will ensure that the referred cases are followed through until they have been resolved. Safe park activity as well as holiday programs are taking place in the center's facilities, facilitated by the CYC. The Safe Park activity removes children from the streets and ensure that children are occupied with developmental activities. Continuing with the highlights. Auxiliary CYC have been deployed in community through, oh, sorry, I have said that just continuing the highlights. Children are taught about their rights and responsibilities. The community CYC discovered that there are children with disabilities who are not in school and not having access to grants, and they assisted the families with information and supported them to get the assistance. Children are assisted with homework supervision after school at the safe parks and in their homes. Child protection cases such as sexual abuse, emotional, physical are reported to the right departments and children received appropriate services. Then we move to the challenges that are being experienced by the CYCs. Some CYC find themselves being deregistered with the Council of Social Professionals due to the late funding or stipends. And also there are no increase on stipends for 2 years. This demoralizing the CYC. CYC not being paid on time for more than 3 months due to the delaying of funding from DSD. As supervision of the CYC is not happening regularly due to the delaying of funding, as some supervisors need transport allowance to get to the remote areas, as not all CYCs are staying near the organization or their offices. There is a high rate of children who are undocumented due to the parents who are in the country illegal. And then the solutions of the challenges that we are asking DSC to absorb the CYC. We are also asking that if it is possible that the university opens doors for CYCs to further their studies. We have so many auxiliary CYCs who are willing to take up their studies. And also we are saying with this opportunity to say thank you to you NSCCWs and to you colleagues for these opportunities. From me and my colleagues next to me, we say thank you. And we know that we are the voice of the voiceless. We will never give up. We will continue even if there are challenges. And we know that we continue our work. One day, the doors will be opened as we are praying and wishing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosina. We'll close the panel discussion with our last speaker, Tembi.
Thank you very much, colleagues. think now we are approaching the good day. My name is Tembisile, as our MC has already introduced me. Firstly, I would love to say thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity of being part of this conference for this year, in order for me to be able to share my role as a child and youth care worker in court and as a court intermediary. Firstly, colleagues, I would love to emphasize and say we are blessed as child and youth care workers, and we are also choosing to give our country the solid support that it needs and it deserves, especially while working with our children and youth, and also with the families. As a court intermediary, I'm employed by Department of Justice in Evander Magistrate Court, which is in Mpumalanga. I have 10 years experience now working with them as a court intermediary, and I'm very proud to say Evander Magistrate Court has allowed me to explore a lot of opportunities and also shine in different corners as a court intermediary with the child and youth care profession. In a way that Evander Magistrate Court, since it has been established, it has never had an opportunity to give services of a court intermediary. But I have been given an opportunity to work with plus minus 8 courts in Mpumalanga region, which shows that they didn't employ me to keep me in their office, but they also wanted to see and allow me an opportunity to give a change into the community that I'm working with. So with my experience of 10 years, I'm so pleased to say Evander Magistrate Court and Mpumalanga region has allowed me to give myself or give my best without me having my own court that I'm working in. But each and every court that I go to, I own up and take it as mine. Getting straight to the role of an intermediary in court, one, I would love to say our services are being allowed to take place in our South African law based on the Criminal Procedure Act, which allow the use of court intermediary in criminal courts, sexual offense courts, children's courts, and also maintenance. But in broad, I would love to say when we were given an opportunity to work as court intermediary, our primary role was to work in sexual offense court. And with the growing up of the need or our work being seen as court intermediary and also the difference that we are making, the Department of Justice has opened an opportunity that even people who are coming for domestic violence can utilize the use of court intermediary based on their vulnerability and their mental state. The court intermediary is being given a very crucial role that they need to play in the court. In that manner, I would love to emphasize that we are dealing with crucial cases as court intermediaries, and we are so pleased to say with the child and youth care knowledge, child and youth care qualifications that we are having, child and youth care experiences, we are giving our best. We don't run away from any challenge that we are facing in any second, because we have been taught, we have been trained. I'm also referring that to our ambassadors and also to our lectures. I was trained by lecturers from DUT, and I'm giving them a word of gratitude today to say I truly highly appreciate the experience that they've given me, because where I am able, as I'm speaking with the crucial role that we are already serving, I am excelling because I understand and know what is expected from me. Going forward, I would love to say that the child and youth care workers in the court environment are being given an opportunity to protect any child that is coming into court. By that, I mean to say, even if we are working as court intermediaries in sexual offense courts, but if there is a case of a child that is taking place, or there is a child who have come to report a case of domestic violence, as a court intermediary, as a child and youth care worker, without maybe even being called. As soon as I hear that there's a child in that environment, I avail myself because I know my role as a child and youth care worker. And also going maybe forward to say, as court intermediaries, we are given a role of being a bridge between the court and the witness, or a court and the victims. In that manner, we are protecting witness from undue stress caused by the court environment. In the court, you will find that there's a magistrate, there's a court orderly, there's a prosecutor, there's a defense lawyer, and also a perpetrator. So you cannot put a child in a court environment and allow a child to testify in that space. They won't be able to do that. Therefore, our government has seen a need to open a special space called a court intermediary room, where a court intermediary will sit with the child. It's away far from the court, the general court that we utilize. This special space, even when you get into it, you will see our rooms. They are child-friendly. Our colors, we utilize in blue and orange, also yellow and green. As you see me today, I'm wearing green because I'm in an environment whereby we are speaking about the children and youth. So that space allows a child to sit there freely. And before working with a child as a court intermediary, it's very important that you build a rapport with the child. Remember, colleagues, here I'm talking about the child that you will meet on that day. You don't need to know the nature of the case. You don't need to ask the child what has happened, but you also need to build a relationship. Allow the child to trust. As a court intermediary with a child and youth care profession experience, how do you do that? I make sure that I keep my face at ease. Allow my children to believe in me, trust me, and have faith in me. I also remind them that I'm there for them. I'm there to make sure that they receive justice. I also remind them that they don't need to worry what is the decision of the magistrate, but they just need to worry about the moment that we are serving with them, in order to make sure that at the end of the day, they testify, take out what is in their hearts, what is in their mind, leave it in court, go back home freely. So building a rapport is very important, which I would even say not only in court, but wherever you are working with the child. When you meet that child, make sure that you first build that relationship with the child so that the child can be able to believe in you and trust. Colleagues, our work is very crucial in a manner that our witness that we are working with, they come from different backgrounds. Let me just make an example with a 11-year-old who has been raped, not once, not twice, not thrice, and she needs to testify now about that case. Believing me, if you don't have a skill or you're not called to do that job, you won't survive a second. But if you are called to do it and you understand your calling and you understand your profession, you will be able to deliver it in a very good manner. Child and youth care workers, let me just say to you, we are always, every day, challenged on how are we doing it. Zeni, I'm giving this to you. We are doing it because we saw you guys doing it before with our children. And from you, we have learned that we want to do it. Our defense lawyers will feel very challenged. They will feel very threatened about our appearance or about our presence. Yes, the truth is we don't have that relationship with them because we don't know them. But if they haven't met you, they will feel with this person is not called to be part of this because they are the one now who are making us to lose, which is not true. We are the one who are making sure that there is a fair trial between the child and the court. So I would love also to give a round of applause to all the child and youth care workers who are working in court. Your work is seen and your work is making a difference. May we continue to do it because we were taught. Remember previously, back years, my colleagues will remember when we were doing our diplomas and our degrees. We were reminded that one way or another, we are not going to get jobs outside there. We are not going to, because we don't understand our language. That one was true. We didn't understand our language that time. But today, I understand. I'm a child and youth care worker by profession, and I'm called to make change in any space that I'm put. And I don't become challenged by any circumstances that I face. But what I believe is each and every moment when I get an opportunity, I need to leave a mark. My colleagues, we are needed in court. If you have heard me talking about the court intermediary and saying primarily we were called to work in sexual offense because that is where children were dealt with more. But now I want to say even in criminal cases, if there is a case of murder and there's a child witness, who is needed there to assist the child? A court intermediary. That is us. If there is a case of divorce and now parents are not sure who is going to stay with those children, and even the parents may be in that conflict, they don't want to speak the truth, and the child are called now to come in court. Who need to be there and advocate for those children, protect them? Other youth care workers who are acting as court intermediaries. That is us. I've been involved in different cases. I'm so pleased to speak about my experiences because this is what I do every day. Firstly, let me just say, colleagues, as a child and youth care worker, if you have this in your shoulders, you have this in your heart, wherever you go, you tell yourself that I'm here and I want to make it and I want people to understand exactly what am I doing. As a court intermediary, one, we're thinking that maybe I'm going to sit there, yes, level 8, sit in the office, wait for a case to be called in court. But mark my word, I didn't allow that to happen to me. When I got there, since my court was not working, I went and joined domestic violence. I sat there as a clerk. For the meantime, I was just taking the applications of the colleagues, of the clients who were coming to apply for protection orders. But then I saw a gap. That a child and youth care worker is needed here. My skills are needed in this space. And then now I started to intervene. Listen, when I'm doing interviews, be able to take the clients and link them with other service providers, give them information to say maybe if they are having maybe a problem with their families, they want someone to help them with the house that is want to be sold, and I will come on board to say I'm now working with other stakeholders, bring that on board. And as a child and youth care worker, I've seen if you give yourself an opportunity to work with other stakeholders, you know everything that is happening, and you also allow yourself that each and every time when you are working with the clients, you will never come to a point whereby you say, I can't help you. But you will say, this one I cannot deal with it at the moment, but I can share it with other colleagues and allow them to assist you. So as court intermediaries, when I'm saying we are truly needed, is that the gap is so big now because we will be needed in maintenance, we'll be needed in children's court. And if you are one, you cannot be able to do it all. But then you need someone to be there. In addition, I would love to say the government has also opened a space for our court intermediaries, our child and youth care workers to come on board and assist us as some ad hoc intermediaries. So wherever you are in your region, please go to the court and ask the court managers to assist you on that, fill in the forms, put yourself in the database and allow yourself to be utilized in the court environment. As I'm about to close, colleagues, I would love to say as a child and youth care worker, I have grown and understand that since God has blessed me after doing my BTech degree, I went and volunteered at St. Anthony's Children's Home, which is in Newcastle, Blabush, under Ubabunzuza. He has taught me that as a child and youth care worker, you are not only called to work in the residential center only, but you can also work in the community. Therefore, in that space, I was a family preservation officer, and that is where I have learned a lot about working with the community. In the court space, I found myself doing, facilitating all the outreaches that are taking place in Ivenda. I run with them. I work with other stakeholders. I attend their events. I attend their outreach. I do presentations, and I've even done so much a presentation for NSCCW in past years. And I would love to say we are waiting for you to bring back our conference. We can't wait. But besides that, I'm also a director of Women Navigating the Future, where I'm working with the community as a child and youth care worker. And I am navigating and I'm making sure that the network that I'm working with, we truly make difference in the community. Because now I'm taking what I'm doing as a child and youth care worker in court, take it to the community, take it to churches, take it to malls, take it to people, wherever they are, wherever women meet, I go and meet with them just to share the experience. So for the opportunity that we have been given today by NSCCW, we love to say thank you very much. And again, I would love to say I am availing myself for any information that any child and youth care worker needs, I will be able to assist. Wherever I can, I will be available to assist. But if you don't find me, know that this child and youth care worker does not sit. She's always on the road making difference. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you so much to all our panel discussion speakers for the second round. Yes, they definitely deserve that round of applause in giving us such rich information related to various settings that child and youth care workers have been exposed to and are doing good work in the field of working with children and their families. We're going to see whether we have any questions. So if there's any hands, we can take 1 or 2 questions or comments. Anna? Anna, you can speak. I'm not sure if you're having a problem on your side. You're unmuted, so you can speak. Okay, maybe we'll move on to Joyce.
Thank you so much, Tabisile, again. I just want to remind her to give us her contact details so that we can be able to communicate with her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we can pass that on to you out of the meeting. Wonderful. Anna, do you want to try again? Hi.
Fiona, while we're waiting for Anna, there's one question for Asanda here. And Asanda, the question to you is, how is the youth mentorship program integrated with family work, as young people and youth belong to families that might have complex situations? Thank you.
Thank you, Zeni. I just saw the question. So fortunately for us at BPS, we work with a lot of stakeholders. We have a COP, Community of Practice, where when we started working, we actually mapped out services in the area or services around Katomena that are within reach. So because the young people that we work with above the age of 18, we don't really need parental consent to work with them. But there are a lot of cases that do need family intervention. And because we already have the COP well established, we're able to easily refer young people within our service providers in cases we were not able to actually help them directly. We've had cases where we've had to do family visits. We've had cases where parents have actually come in, because remember, these are out of school youth, freshly out of school. So if some of them are saying that they're going to BPS, parents don't even know what BPS is. So we actually have parents who drive their young people to our offices to actually double check and find out what it is that we're actually doing. So the work is definitely not without family intervention, but because we do have a well-established network of service providers, it is very easy for us to refer cases that we're not able to work with directly to one of our partners. Thank you for that question.
Great. Thank you so much. Can we just check if there's any other questions? We've suggested that Anna put a question or comment in the chat box. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, then can I just check?
Fiona, my hand is up.
Hi.
Oh, you can see.
Okay.
Thank you. My question is goes to Sis Asa. Hi, Sis Asa. I'm so grateful to see you today. My question is based on the youth programs that you are doing. We are very interested because we have a lot of youth that we are working with, and we will love to know how can we link them with you so that they can get your support, get assistance, and continue with this youth leadership that they have taken point on. Thank you.
Asanda,
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Thanks, Fiona. Thank you so much, Thembi. Nice to meet you, Sissy. I think we can definitely exchange contacts. Maybe I'll find you on LinkedIn. to answer your question, unfortunately, remember I did say the work is not without challenges, but it's not a challenge, it's just a limitation. So because this is a research study by UCT and UJ, we're only limited to certain areas. So for eThekwini, we work with young people around the greater Katomena because young people come to us. We don't have the budget to drive out to different communities. So if maybe it's a child from Mlazi, then it becomes difficult to work with them because they're just too far. And then in Joburg, we have Orange Farm, and then Cape Town, we have Atlantis. So we can only work with young people around those communities due to the fact that it is a documented study, and we need to contain it in a certain area, and also budget constraints. Our teams are still quite small, so we're not able to reach out to bigger communities. But definitely, I would love to speak with you. I do see your email address, so I'll note it down. Thank you.
Great. I think, yes, there's a definite big need for mentorship programs for our young people. Anna, your hand is still up, so I don't want to ignore it. Were you wanting to try and speak again? Okay, see, it's gone off. Zeni, is there anything else from the chat group?
Yes, if I could just read, I think there've been compliments and appreciation for all the presentations in the chat box. But I think this one from Nasli Finch summarizes it. It says that reflecting on our child and youth care journey through the ages, the field has evolved in leaps and bounds. I remember those times when we said we needed to pause and internalize all the learnings that we had made through our powerful training, that we were fortunate to participate through the dedicated, innovative team at NACCW. We had no time to pause. We worked in the moment and ensured that we took our teams with us by sharing what we had learned and explored ways in how we were going to implement these changes that are necessary to transform our child and youth care facilities and be relevant to the time, to the ever-changing times. And I think in a way, the second panel talks about the ever-changing times. I think that the settings presented are just beginnings of the future of child and youth care workers in a range of different settings, touching children and youth, through all different phases of their lives and places that they can be found. So thank you, Fiona.
Hey, thank you so much to everyone, and a pleasure that you will stay on just almost at the closing. So in this point, I just want to now introduce and welcome Mr. Hitler Sekhitla, our Registrar for Council, and I'm just going to share a short bio before we hand over to him. So thank you for joining us and staying with us through the program, and I'm going to just report that Mr. Sekhitla, as we know him as Mr. Hitler, is a registered social worker with council, and he's got more than 19 years experience as a social worker and as a manager. And as you can see, he's got very vast experience working in the sector, both in the NGO sector with SAVF, and then working in different faculties like the NIHAU, at the CCMA as a commissioner, and then obviously being very involved with the council. Mr. Sekhitla has his qualifications in many different things, including his Bachelor of Social Work, but his advanced certificate in labor law, his certificate in human resource management and financial, and he's also had his LLB with UNISA. So he served on a number of national structures, and this includes being on the HWCTA board for the period of 2010 to 2017, and then being on the Ministerial Committee on the review of the White Paper for Social Welfare, being a negotiator for different bodies, and he was appointed in terms of the Social Service Professions Act to serve on the 4th Council from June 2016 to November 2017. Also very involved as the professional conduct manager for council under the secretariat. Currently, Mr. Hitler is the first African male registrar for our council and was appointed since May 2024. So now I hand over to Mr. Hitler. Thank you again for being with us throughout the program, and he'll do some closing comments.
Thanks.
Thanks, Program Director, for the warm welcome. And I would like to take this opportunity to greet you all colleagues and comrades within the social service sector, in particular our child and youth care workers whom we are celebrating this week. Program Director, allow me to switch off the camera so that it does not compete with the network. I just wanted to show my face so that the sector can see their registrar. So allow me to switch off the camera. Having said that, the program